I'm Case.
I'm Adam.
I'm Nick.
And we just saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Electro's Boogaloo.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good. Well done.
Actually, on that note, so I guess we'll start with the title. So originally, I was telling Adam this. The movie was going to be called The Rise of Electro, and in some markets, it's still being called
Electro.
like it's still being marketed as The Rise of Electro.
Interesting.
Which
You did do a lot of rising.
I can only imagine at some point there was a draft where he was actually the villain,
Yeah.
as opposed to
A henchman.
the henchman of.
A much worse villain.
Or
Like a villain whose backstory is much less developed than the actual villain
Right.
who was not the villain.
Come on, Adam. You didn't immediately recognize that Harry Osborn and Peter Parker had this intricate, amazing friendship that they
Even though they hadn't
both
seen each other in 8
remembered
years.
at age 18. Right,
Yeah.
10 years. No, it was 8.
8 years.
It was 8 years, and their bond is still as strong.
It's so good. It's so
so
between
strong.
them.
So
See, that didn't bother me because I could see like you have a
remember
friend when you're
anyone
10 years old, you don't
ago.
see them until
I don't remember anyone 8 years
until
ago.
high school. No, but
Who did I know?
12.
My mom. I know my mom.
But there's that like nostalgia vibe that like okay we go back a long ways. I respect
Yeah,
that.
I can get behind
It's
that.
just that we saw nothing of it in the first movie,
Right.
and then we're
So-
just expected to
Yeah,
swallow
maybe
it for the
let's
second
lead in a little bit, I guess, then with
Yeah,
with
we
the
have
first
to
movie.
organize how we're going to do this because I had so much to say about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3 in this movie.
The first movie, I thought, was better than it could have been, given the circumstances that they basically were told, "Oh shit, we need to make a movie
Before
or
we lose the rights. Yeah, exactly.
And
They really
in that
rushed
regard, what they did well was did the exact same things that the first Spider-Man movie did, that Sam Raimi put together, with slightly newer actors and occasionally different takes on some of the things.
The same basic story, but with like a more updated like version of humor.
Slightly more updated humor, and then they decided to just literally take a dump on the concept of a villain and a story arc that actually concludes upon itself, and made possibly the lamest supervillain ever put to a movie, and to a superhero movie, and I'd actually challenge you to come up with one worse.
Yeah,
It doesn't have a redeeming quality. Like
that's
we can
tough.
talk about like Poison Ivy and Batman and Robin, and at
I
the
would argue
very
that Bane
least,
and Batman and Robin.
well, but that's a
first.
henchman. Like
You're talking about Maine.
because
I'm not talking. No one else.
I'm not talking
I'm
about.
not talking about the Indian doctor.
Zod.
I think Zod was more interesting than
Zod had nothing interesting or redeeming about him whatsoever.
Zod was
Michael
way
Sheen,
more
Great
interesting
Yeller.
than fucking
Great
the
Yeller.
lizard.
I don't know. At least the lizard started off
Yeah,
as like
Zod-
a normal
Zod
dude.
was
Zod was
pretty-
just a one-note.
So there was a comic book that came out recently that's part of the it was the most recent issue of Invincible Universe, where the Serpent group in it had turned half this like team of superheroes into lizards or lizard people. Yes,
Yeah,
Hell Hydra.
Hell Hydra.
And it's like, and now you should attack the non-mutated ones. They're like, no, all you did was turn us into lizards. You didn't do anything.
This is not a helpful trait
Well,
to have.
yeah.
hold on. That's what we're all assuming happened in Amazing Spider-Man. If you remember, because I rewatched the film recently, they never actually go back or delve into what happens with the cops. We assume he's
I'm not
turning
talking
people
about-
into lizards.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, why did him becoming a lizard man make him evil and want to turn everyone else into lizard people? Like, his motives are just, like, all over the place. Like,
he knew that humans needed to be better. And that
Yeah, it
obviously
wasn't
to become
the-
ugly and
the lizard thing was a
huge
means
and
to the
become
end, yeah.
cold-blooded.
the first one in general, I think, was just... It was a weak movie that
Well,
had,
it
like...
was an interesting point that like it was sort of what X-Men tries to do, which is like, what's the next step of human evolution? Is Spider-Man the next step, and how do we replicate that? Like, kind of like how do we replicate like a Captain America sort of thing?
Right, Marvel.
And it's a misguided attempt at someone trying to make humanity better.
Right, the
By
basic
being lizards,
theme
which of
is
course-
the basic
Yeah.
theme is you don't.
It's the
I mean, Mario Brothers did it. You know, Koopa was.
it's the exact
Koopa
plot
King.
of the Man
Koopa
Bat
King.
episode from Batman the Animated Series,
Yeah.
right? Or,
Yeah,
like,
that was the first episode.
It was. It was the pilot.
yeah,
It was.
on Leather Wings.
On
Yep.
the wings, yeah.
Oh my god,
Um,
you remember it? That's amazing. Brother librarian.
But I'll say this. So, Amazing Spider-Man 1, I thought, was a bad movie that could have been worse, so I was okay with seeing a sequel.
Yes,
This
I was
movie
definitely hoping it would improve, and I heard that people were
way
calling this
better.
the Dark Knight of the Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, considering that I see the parallels. This movie is so much better than The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes, definitely.
But it is not cohesive at all. It's more like a collection of ideas that have been kind of like put in a blender and shat out.
Right.
With,
But at the same time, I'm pretty impressed that they didn't just like throw. I mean, they handled everyone was just assuming it was just gonna be like a villain fest, like every second or third.
That's
years,
true.
Which actually was kind of great. Like it was a blender. It was a casserole of nonsense, but they stuck to basically their main villain, who was like kind of manipulated later, but like basically it was Electro for like 9
right?
What?
I thought.
And then Aunt May, of course, Nurse
she
May.
was lying to Peter.
Nurse
into the locker. She just needed to go to sleep. Just go to sleep, Aunt May.
I thought this movie was very campy in a lot of ways. I thought scenes like the Ravencroft stuff with Dr. Kafka, all of these are way out there. And
Worst
Arnim Zola 2.0.
This felt like someone who watched Batman Forever and Batman and Robin were like, "This is how you make a superhero movie."
Like I said to you guys, that scene with Jamie Foxx where he's like, "Oh, hey, Spider-Man, thanks for wishing me a happy birthday."
Is exactly the Riddler.
Literally copied the exact same performance Jim Carrey did in Batman Forever when they played.
It was dead on. Like the whole thing.
But for the record, Jamie Foxx did it better.
I actually liked. Well, Jamie Foxx only got the accompaniment of "Happy Birthday," so.
Yeah.
So, this is someone who watched Batman Forever and was like, "This is a really good movie. How do I make a Spider-Man movie up to par with Batman Forever?"
Right, and no one bothered to tell them it's not a really good movie.
No, Batman Forever was
just
a
a
passable
pretty good
movie, and since then has been eclipsed by way more things.
Right.
But at the time, it was a fine movie.
Yeah.
I'd argue it's better than Batman Returns. People argue with me about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, well, that's
I'm prepared to, I think most people are okay with it, that there is an argument about that.
Sure.
It's like Die Hard 2 versus Die Hard with a Vengeance.
You're now on a tangent of your tangent. Let's get back on task.
We're talking about a movie about
Electro.
We want to talk about the main villain.
So right off the bat, I actually very much enjoyed the opening sequence with Spider-Man actually fighting the Rhino, sort of. Right. It actually felt very goofy. This is probably the best time I've seen Spider-Man be a funny character.
Right. Yes.
The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
His joke writing in the first one was really bad.
Yeah, the three Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, you could barely hear him. He was always kind of mumbling under the mask.
Yep.
Never really good jokes. And then Amazing Spider-Man, he had really bad jokes. At least he was making them.
Right.
This one
is more. He's stuck true to the Spider-Man character, which is great.
He's more douchey in Amazing though. He's much more douchey.
Yeah.
But
I like that. I like how he's by the start of this second movie, he's a fully competent, pretty unstoppable superhero.
He's a hero. I also
he's
like
not fumbling Tobey Maguire's fumbling in all the movies.
Right, and I really like that the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I think the original Spider-Man 1 and 2 at least didn't do as well, was in that opening sequence. They really took steps to establish him as a part of the New York world.
Yeah.
The copters were like, seeing Spider-Man again today, and people were like, get him, Spider-Man, blah, blah, blah. We realize that time has passed. We know that he's...
And we have to go through the whole, Jameson doesn't like Spider-Man, so is he a villain? People like him. They want him to be...
We didn't need Jameson in the movie to tell us that.
Right. Although I do miss me some J. Jonah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at least happy to have, his emails in this one.
That was really...
That was missing from the first one.
Wrong.
I like that Spider-Man stopped to talk to some of the people he saved, the little kid, and even Jamie Foxx's Max Dillon. Those were moments to be he's at least
he's the person's hero. He's the people's hero. He's not a face. He's not like an Iron Man who just sort of runs in and out and does his own things.
He's look at my cool stuff.
Yeah, he wants people and he even when Electro first surfaces, his first impulse is not fighting like it is with every other Marvel franchise. It's talking and being your friend.
That's something that I've
he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
That's something that I've always liked about Spider-Man, and I really like that this film did it. Was that he tries to solve problems personally first.
Yeah.
Like
Problems
from a person
that are for the most part in this movie created by the NYPD.
Right, yeah. That's
oh my god.
As opposed to Goblin, who's like stopped by New York throwing tomatoes
This
at
was
him.
a huge call out to the incompetence of the NYPD.
Almost
in
every
the
situation
superhero
that
world.
comes up is because everything with Electro is he shows up. Like, the first time he shows up, he's literally not touching anyone. The only thing he's doing is he's touching a power line, but nothing is being affected by it.
Right.
And the cops start shooting at him.
Well, and then also somehow he gets on all of in Times Square grid, which is
No,
you don't know that.
But then also,
it's
everyone. If you are a criminal in Times Square, legally, filmmakers are obligated to shoot you, attach you in to the giant.
But it wasn't just NYPD.
the
It's also all of the civilians start booing him. They're like, "We want Spider-Man. You're evil." It wasn't just NYPD.
Yeah, but no, NYPD is the catalyst for this because they shoot they pull the gun on him first. He's scared. They start shooting at him. All he's doing is defending himself. The only thing he does before they open fire is a car almost hits him, and he picks the car up and moves it aside.
Which he wasn't intending.
Right.
He probably had no idea.
No, he was freaked out. He had no idea what he was doing, and he didn't hurt anyone.
Right.
And then all of a sudden,
the car doesn't. But the car doesn't explode. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't kill anyone else.
It wasn't even very fast.
Basically,
if the person's buckled
right.
up,
He does it slowly.
Yeah. And then when Spider-Man almost talks him down, the police sniper shoots him.
Yeah.
Right.
And this starts the whole fight.
Does that ever happen in any other hostage situation? That the sniper just decides all of a sudden to shoot?
Given. However, they'd already established that bullets don't do anything to him because he burned, or the bullets all just melt around him. Which, there's Electro's powers are weird.
You know what? I yield to the two of you and your knowledge of electricity and greater workings of science.
Well, what I loved is that they modified his origin, so it's basically Spider-Man's origin, but with electricity. So he's literally
not with electricity.
Electric eels.
He was almost radioactive electric.
He was almost Eel-Man. Speaking of which, I love that I love that since Rise of the Planet of the Apes, they are only using CGI animals now. So the CGI eels
they had the evil face.
Amazing. They look like. Imagine if they had been around with Little Mermaid. We would have been seeing CGI flotsam and jetsams everywhere. So scared, but they looked angry.
Yeah.
I feel like the eel's face was actually pretty akin to Goblin's face. It was sort of like that sharp.
Similar. I think everyone's just some form of an
as
eel
a quick tangent,
in this movie.
He was terrifying.
I have a lot to say about Goblin.
I know you do, but I was actually
Goblin later.
Okay.
What did you guys think? This was a very different interpretation of Electro, typically from what he is in the comic books and the video games and stuff. So what did you guys think of the Jamie Foxx? First of all, obviously he's black, which Electro hasn't been before, and he was also a very geeky version.
The making him an electrical engineer as opposed to literally a guy who was working on power lines,
right?
Which is the origin in the comics.
First.
I'm fine with that. It actually seemed like a logical thing. The fact that Oscorp ties into every Spider-Man
is a little annoying.
It's a little over the top, but you can
bioweapons, guys. The army needs them.
See, the bioweapon part is fine. So they just made 6 super soldiers. I can kind of deal with that one. But then it's also
why would
radioactive spiders and now radioactive eels
and lizards
and lizards.
And I love that the evil corporate guy was like, we really need to cut down on the animal projects because the stockbrokers are losing.
Okay, so why were those tanks of electric? I mean, the logistics of all these things are so weird, and why it was so campy. The electric eel tanks were just at a station where a conduit was a major component of the power lines of the building happened to be, and I'm all of the
poor design.
It was just for design choices, but then the whole time you're why? And this leads into my big problem with the next character. But let's talk about Electro still. His powers. His powers once they got going were consistent with the comic book version. He could fly, which some versions have been able to, and others have been able to create literally solid lightning that he could walk along. So I'm fine with that. Being able to shoot around electric lines, that's fine. it doesn't really make sense because electric eels can't do that, which... So it's like, where does this power come from? Like, what is going on with his power? And they never
I think they were trying
to disbelief.
I think they were trying to do that. Like, he got because his whole thing was like, you know, he felt like so alone and so powerless that he wanted more and more power. And when he finally did, he was, you know, they needed a way to do that so he could be everywhere at once. He could do everything. He could be in anything. He could be in anywhere.
Yeah, I actually...
I would say developed a little bit more.
Here's the thing. I wish
I don't think
that
they had
earlier
enough time
draft...
with him doing that.
I think whatever draft that had them thinking that Electro was going to be the centerpiece of this movie, I think that could have been much more interesting than what we ultimately got. I think they were so freaked out about not setting up enough sequels, and then apparently so freaked out at the end of the production that they still didn't have enough...
Decided to not do, the ending that we were accustomed to.
They tried to put as many things in there just to get it going, so that the next movie you can get going with any of these concepts,
right?
And that's fine, sort of, but it means that we don't have any character who is as interesting as what they could be. Yeah,
right.
I mean, having a bunch of villains doesn't ruin a movie. The Dark Knight is the ultimate example that you can have a couple villains and not even necessarily have any of them achieve equal status with each other. Joker is empirically the most dynamic character in that, but he's not the most powerful character at the start or even at the end.
Right.
And he's not the most he's the most interesting, but he's not the one that we have the most time spent with. Right. You know, we spent way more time with Harvey Dent, and his whole Two-Face thing, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But it never really outweighs the story, and it all kind of flows together. Nothing about this flowed together. The Rhino stuff at the beginning, tying in at the end, was.
But that's fine because you don't need Rhino's never meant to be touted as a significant or important villain. He's just there as just another thing for Spider-Man to deal with, as opposed to just random burglars, which I'm actually fine with.
Some of it's also trailer bait though. The opening stuff with Rhino, I actually really like that scene.
Right.
The ending scene with Rhino, when he comes back and now has a mech suit. Bullshit.
Well, it fell into the Return of the King trap, which is they had 3 endings to that movie.
Yeah.
At least. And I don't know.
Say something about Electro.
He used electricity.
Yeah.
No, I mean the most interesting part of the movie for me was
where did he get that suit? So when he comes
Harry,
back,
Harry,
it's a lightning insignia jumpsuit that looked.
They had it ready. They had everything.
Nobody was anticipating that this would be one of their projects, right?
Yeah, the youth. What else were they?
The only thing I could imagine that suit was for was a suppressor suit, but I
it had little light.
But actually, the really good point is how would Harry, after being ostracized from his own company, be able to get that and know how it works? Also, he didn't know about any of these projects until that moment.
I think we can agree that Electro is not the main character of this. He's basically just a henchman that we spent some time with, developing his character.
Right, which
that we didn't get with Harry Osborn. We got some scenes of him, but all the stuff to drive the character. Harry Osborn makes no fucking sense in this whole movie.
It was really upsetting.
And you know what the most annoying part about it was that nothing he asked for was unreasonable.
Right.
All he asked for was a sample of Spider-Man's blood, and Spider-Man was like, "No, I'm not giving you my blood." For no apparent reason.
No, not at all.
Because Harry Osborn wasn't just going to shoot him up with it, or in a real world, Harry Osborn wouldn't just take the blood and inject it into himself. He would run a fucking test.
He's like,
right. That was the one thing that Spider-Man kept being like, it might help you, or it might kill you. I don't know. But it's not like we have a precedent like the Hulk, where his blood could, he's so radioactive that he should kill anyone, and just by a miracle, She-Hulk survived. Or Savage Dragon, where literally every person who's had a sample of his blood has died unless they were superhuman to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, everyone was acting like Harry Osborn was dying tomorrow. Harry was acting like he was dying tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you've got a few months. Your dad was, I did the math, he was in his late 50s when he died. Harry was supposed to be 18 or thereabouts. You had enough time to do a couple tests. Spider-Man, hey, can I have a sample of your blood? It's not like I own the giant fucking corporation that does all of the bioengineering in the world at my disposal. It has my fucking name on the building. I can get someone to examine your blood and tell me if it's going to kill me or not.
But there is a good point that's raised, is that Peter is already super skeptical of Oscorp as an organization due to the first movie, which does tie in the lizard stuff, which is like, yeah, I could give you my blood as my friend Harry Osborn, but yeah, you're going to turn it over to your team of, like, what I believe to be from the first movie, evil scientists.
But then he needs to express it. Because
well,
that's
you
not...
can't do that without giving
no,
away that he's Peter Parker.
No, there's nothing he said... Either when he confronted him as Peter Parker or when he confronted him as Spider-Man. Like, if Spider-Man laid those points out, that would be an actual argument. But those aren't the arguments he made. And I think, honestly, linking anything to Amazing Spider-Man 1 regarding Oscorp just makes it worse, because you have to wonder how Oscorp doesn't already know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, since they have security cameras in an area with spiders that bit him.
Yeah.
Where Peter Parker...
I don't know why.
Peter Parker
that's
bulk ordered...
He's not a hard... Yeah.
He really dropped the ball there.
Peter Parker bulk ordered the web fluid from Oscorp, which is supposed to be only used for industrial purposes.
Yeah.
So, like...
It must still be ordering. It's been a while.
So he has to be like their most regular customer, and probably the only private citizen who's ordering web fluid from Oscorp.
Right.
How do they not know he's already
He's got
Peter?
the alias.
Hey, Gwen's smuggling it out, maybe.
Maybe now, but not for the chunk.
Who, again, I think the best, like, part of that movie, not because I want to have sex with her, because I very much want to have sex with her, but, like, the actually, like, the most interesting character in that entire movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
Was Gwen.
Like, not damsel in distress, like, actually, like, held her own, knew what she was doing.
Or tried to, at least.
Well,
yeah.
Their dialogue was awful, but they do have good chemistry. Part of that is because they date in real life.
They're very charming. They're
Don't
very...
tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Well, I mean...
Like,
you should be comfortable. You should feel comfortable that the romance between Harry Osborn and Peter Parker, the emphasis was put much more on that than between Gwen and Peter.
I mean,
to wrap up Electro real quick, I just want to say that I thought that the idea of him being taking on more of a henchman role in the movie totally fit the character, because in the comics he has always had kind of a like
fits the Electro character, but like I don't think it fit the first like third of the movie.
Yeah.
No. I mean, Harry Osborn. If they were going to go with that route, I think he should have come in as a person using Electro earlier in the film.
Yeah.
They should have done that. You know.
Like, although I do like how the scene where Harry just breaks down in front of Electro and is like, "I need you, please." Like that was like kind of pathetic in a way that like I kind of was. That's like the only scenario in which I can see Electro just be like, "All right, I'm just gonna be your buddy now."
His personality like totally flipped though, which I really didn't care for.
Harry's?
Electro's. Well,
Harry's
too, but
you always have to assume there's a little bit of like the insanity factor.
Yeah, I guess we're factoring say if we're doing the same thing.
The Lizard. I mean, it's
all of them.
All those movies, even
once you get superpowers, you go crazy.
Not even
only if you're a villain.
Even like Ironmonger, he went to like mass murder just because he like put on a giant robot suit.
This is what's called the third act problem. However, with this movie, that third act problem happened in Act 2 instead. Like, the how do we wrap this concept up? It's like that whole speech that was just trailer bait that he gave, where it's like a world without power.
Or without Spider-Man.
Yeah. Like,
I was like, none of these. I was like, bro, are you doing a like hatred leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to... I was like, none of these things are connected.
Right.
He was like, I'm alone, so everyone will be in darkness, and then there won't be Spider-Man. I was like, how are you getting from...
And he was I get his attachment to Spider-Man because he's had that attachment, but the flip to, I'm such a big fan of you, to now you've kind of ruined me, but now the world will be better without you. That's the leap I didn't get.
Oh, and where was his vengeance on BJ Novak?
Yeah.
Like, the only person he legitimately hated at Oscorp is a person who we never see once he actually gets superpowers.
He really should have gone after BJ Novak and the maintenance dude that left.
Yeah.
Who was like, hey, screw you, man, I'm out the door. He was like, hey, I'm down here with electric wires and electric
my birthday.
Can you do something?
And I'm going to touch it without electric.
And I'm going to touch it without electrical thing.
Yeah.
He would be like a legal fault for not doing his job.
But here's the thing. So, like, I think this is an example of, like, in this draft, these characters were important. and then the second half of the movie got rewritten, and they never went back and either took
totally
out those characters or kept figured out how to keep their through.
I would have loved to have seen what should have happened was I would have loved to have seen instead of Electro being obsessed with getting all the power from the city, if he was obsessed with totally shutting down Oscorp and went in there and took out all of the people that didn't notice him and then treated him like shit. Because it was clear that was oh, he's getting treated like shit in his workplace. DJ Novak is mean to him. These guys ignore him. He's like, it's my birthday, can I leave? People are like, no. If he went in there and was like, I run this place now, I control the energy, I control everything, and we have this great shot of him sucking the energy from the fake building.
Which would have made for a much better team up between them.
The final battle should have taken place at Oscorp. Not at the Oscorp
power plant.
Where was that? Because it was Brooklyn.
It was
or Queens.
It had to be Brooklyn.
Was it? I thought it was.
Well, no, because they can see it from Manhattan.
Oh right. Yep.
So.
You can see the Freedom Tower very clearly.
Is that where the Watchtower,
what bridge were they on?
Spot is?
What bridge did he take her to the top of?
That was the Brooklyn Bridge, I think.
He was on the Manhattan Bridge because
she was going to the airport.
Okay.
So maybe they're on Queensboro.
Oh god! The geography of this was so weird.
Confused.
The fact that the Oscorp building being just Hearst Tower, and they did a better job of at least disguising
it. So it was a Queensboro Bridge then. But no, there's no other bridge.
No, because the "I love you" was written on the Brooklyn Bridge,
right?
And I'm pretty sure they were just in Manhattan because that's.
But I thought she was on the.
She was in an underpass.
Oh right.
She wasn't on the bridge initially.
Where is this? Where is the clock tower, man?
Okay, so all right. Do you want to talk about this weird?
No, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
All right, so that weird fucking power grid facility, which is on the coast or on the coast of the river. And then, also just, pylons of electricity everywhere. And then a giant mechanical clock tower. Not,
with gears.
With gears.
Actual gears.
Right, I mean, what... Well, you need that.
Because Gwen has to fall in it.
Well, and because I wanted to kind of look like the first Spider-Man movie, because the fight happened kind of similarly in that, in a tower like that.
And then the Spider-Man video game that came out where you fight Vulture, that takes place in the clock tower as well.
That's true.
There's a theme going on here, apparently.
Clock towers are a very common sight for, a villain fight, but, this doesn't make sense for these villains or this location.
Right.
You just got done, you're inside a hydroelectric power plant, and now this
fight is a 19th century clock tower.
Powered clock. And I get that we want to have
metaphors. It's funny because I think the clock tower was supposed to be run by the city, and then the Oscorp had all the private electricity. So it was ever since Oscorp was providing
just a big
the electricity for the whole city, it was the city's just oh, we'll let the corporations take care of it.
They had the same with the NYPD. They just this is just a giant knock on.
Right, there's actually, if you look close to their bags, it wasn't the NYPD. They were actually extensions of the Oscorp security force.
No, I actually don't know what this was saying in terms of okay, so Oscorp is an evil corporation that has way too much power in the city, but the city and all of its municipal workers are constantly driving the world into chaos. And I don't know what this is trying to say about...
The world needs Oscorp. That's what they're saying.
It needs... you could make an argument that maybe it's the moderation of Spider-Man, who is a vigilante, but he has a pure motive, is the only way to go. But that's such a weird, loose concept there. Spider-Man is... Unless they're trying to make this weird statement that, we all should be vigilantes and, have, some sort of, Ayn Rand, level of personal responsibility
thing going on. Right.
Then I don't know what this movie is saying, and I think it's because the second half of this movie doesn't make sense. I liked pretty much the first half.
At least not compared to not tied when it's tied with the first half of the movie, which unfortunately is how movies usually run. Mm-hmm. If this movie was guys, we're going to show you two separate movies in one night, I'd be
and whichever you better, we're going to make a
third
one
I'd be
that.
Those are two interesting movies, but since it was one movie...
if this had come out as, webisodes, and then all together...
Yeah,
no, seriously, if these were, 10-minute shorts or, serials, I would have been much more accepting of the series, because there would have been so many good episodes.
Yep, sure.
in a series that had some misses in there.
I think the CGI probably would have looked the same.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. Like oh god, the CGI
Like I said,
was so hit or miss.
Best video game I've ever watched.
All right, let's get back to Harry because I think we've said enough about Electro.
Yeah.
Harry. Speaking of which, when he becomes the Green Goblin,
Terrifying, actually.
his look wasn't that bad,
Very unique.
but every
cackle
time
was
he was
terrifying.
fucking flying, the CGI version of Harry Osborn looked like so horrible. Like every time
How did you see it? There was like 2 shots in the dark.
like that was kind of the problem. Like it looked like a poorly rendered face that they assumed no one was going to pay attention to. It looked really bad. Every time he was like actually flying, he just looked awful.
Yeah.
And the problem is, it's a movie about characters who move around at high speeds and like in the air.
Right.
So like the spectacle that we're trying to watch is the fight that happens in the air between the two.
Right.
And
But it's such a short-lived battle. I mean, they
it was a short battle.
fight.
It was a short battle that didn't need to happen.
It was really short.
Well, they needed
Yeah,
to kill Gwen.
Yeah. So spoilers, by the way. So Gwen
Sorry,
Stacy dies. Gwen Stacy dies,
And actually, her death was like kind of beautifully rendered.
Yeah,
I was actually.
I thought it was the most gorgeous part of the movie.
Yeah.
That was
like Gwen Stacy exists only to die.
Today.
She didn't exist originally that way to die, but basically, and I actually really like this theory, that Spider-Man's second origin is his failure to save Gwen Stacy, and that's his move into adulthood. And I like that idea. It's about an adult failing to save his love as opposed to a young man failing to save a father figure.
Yeah.
So I do like that concept, and if we're moving forward with Spider-Man, that's cool. The problem is that means we've just done 2 movies that are just origin stories.
Right.
And no one is surprised that Gwen Stacy is going to die in a movie. Like,
once she's introduced,
she's
you're
only
really
known
just,
for it.
it's
She
a
died
ticking-
in 1973.
it's a ticking time.
She only the run of Spider-Man between his creation and her death was 11 years. And then she's been dead longer than most people who read Spider-Man are alive. In fact, she's been dead longer than most people who write Spider-Man have been
Wait,
alive.
so she hasn't been around at all since '73?
Like, they've tried to bring her back in like weird capacities.
They've had clones and
clones.
Yeah, man.
But she died in 1973 when Spider-Man was in college. Spider-Man has been out of college since the late 70s.
But if you watch the movie, he's still in high school in his early 30s, which is something I like that they kept with the theme of using 30-year-olds in high school.
Yeah.
Is he actually? How is he actually?
Andrew Garfield, he's like 32 or something.
No
He and
way.
Emma Stone.
No,
They're both in their
Emma Stone's
30s.
younger than I am. Emma Stone's
No.
like 27.
Well, he's in his 30s.
I thought he was like 28. Like,
No, he's in his 30s. I Google it now because I don't want to sound like an idiot on this review. Edit this out if I'm wrong, but totally keep it in. For me.
Calvin Coolidge is from Vermont,
I
not from
think-
Virginia.
Shut up! Shut up! Wow, he's the first Andrew that comes up in a Google search.
What is
Let's
it?
keep this
it?
focus.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, we have to keep this focus on the age of Andrew Garfield because if I edit this out, I can only edit this out if
Oh,
it's
right.
all
Yeah,
about
that's
stuff.
1983.
What is he?
August 1983. So
Oh, shit, so he's 31.
30. No,
Keep it
30.
in! Hell, I got
31.
Huh?
He'll be
83. I was born in 84. I'm turning 30 in 2 days.
Right, so he's born in 83. August has not
Oh,
happened
so
yet.
it's, okay, so it's
he will
30.
be 31 in
Yeah, okay,
few
so...
months.
Alright,
Still 30s. Hail Hydra.
Shut the fuck up.
so he's in the 30s. That actually makes me feel better about life.
You look better than he does.
I wasn't talking about that.
Oh, okay.
And also, you don't.
No, I really don't.
It's his birthday.
Not quite
You're
yet.
an asshole. All right, so let's talk about Harry. First off, what did you guys? Well, Harry actually like the
This is
actor.
the first off, by the way. We're well into the Harry
Are
discussion.
we? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Emma Stone's a Scorpio, just like me.
She's gonna
So
be a Scorpion.
what is it?
So
Dahan.
She's
It's
Scorpio.
what is it? Dane Dahan.
Dale
Dale Dahan.
DeHaan, Dale
Dildon,
yeah.
have you seen him in things before?
Yeah.
What is
Actually,
it-
I
what
was
is
going
his
to
name?
say one thing I was going to reference specifically was the movie Chronicle, which is a great.
Oh, he's the one
superhero
that
kind of
goes
movie. Yeah.
goes crazy.
In
right?
fact, the Electro kind of the way he wants to be the center of attention and everyone notice him is almost the exact arc that the character goes through in Chronicle. So I actually rather like. I was happy to see him. I think he's a good actor. I think he did a lot with not very well written material. But I think the material that they gave Harry Osborn is awful.
I think Harry Osborn's hair did a lot with the
looking just like
Harry Osborn's material. I also think it was I was.
It's like, hey, we
shocked.
got Tobey Maguire.
Was that like a big fuck you to everyone that hates
Spider-Man
3 because he looked just like Tobey Maguire.
Maybe, although he looked pretty similar in Chronicle.
Okay, maybe
so
that's
I
him.
wouldn't be that surprised
Maybe that's
if
what
that's
he
just
does.
his hairstyle.
I feel like we all should have, before we started this, should have just done like this.
That would have
for
been really
the
funny.
video.
My hair never does that.
No, you look more like Andrew Garfield right now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But like uglier, like much uglier.
Yeah, that's okay. Well,
Like
at least
less.
I'm not the same age. Anyway, so I thought that the unlike the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, I thought that Andrew Garfield and Harry Osborn's chemistry was much more forced. That first scene when they meet each other, it was the bromance that wasn't even a romance.
Yeah. Well, and it's been brought up that like this is one of the problems of like being tied to the Amazing Spider-Man. Which I hate that I say the word amazing when I describe that movie.
You have to say it. That's how they did it. They designed it.
Yeah, they linked it to a movie where none of this stuff happened. Like when Spider-Man was researching Oscorp in the first movie, you think the fact that he like grew up with like
maybe I should ask my
best
friend
quote-unquote
that
best
kind
friend.
of owns the company about this.
But see, what I kind of liked is like they established like, except for the one
instead,
line.
I'm just gonna steal a pass and like sneak in. Somehow.
Right, yeah.
Except for the one line where he does call Harry his best friend, which I just it's best bud or whatever.
That's how you knew.
Which you just kind of I just kind of ignored. It wasn't like the James Franco Tobey Maguire where like they're like grow up buddies like. They knew each other, like it's like a friend that you haven't seen in a bunch of years.
I mean, they rode around it, but it was still a problem. Like
it was,
but but in this universe, they're not like best friends. They're childhood friends who went their separate paths and had nothing to do with each other, which explains why they like all my friends from like when I was like in elementary school and middle school, like I have nothing in common with them anymore other than our shared life experience from when we were kids.
It's
which
true.
makes perfect sense.
If you heard that their dad died, you wouldn't go over into their house and say, "Hey, I'm sorry that your dad died. My dad died."
But that's the thing. That's actually exactly what I would do. I would go to them and I'd be like, we're kind of estranged to each other right now, but like, and like I don't really know who you are right now. But like I remember who you were, and like I still remember your dad when I was like 8 years old.
No, I mean
that actually makes more sense to me.
Like
than trying to shoehorn them into being best friends, like all growing up, like James Franco and Tobey Maguire. And it actually makes sense. And maybe he is his best friend because Spider-Man doesn't really have any other friends.
I mean, like not to be too like depressing. Like I remember when a classmate of mine from grade school passed away when I was in high school. Like that kind of sentiment occurred when like all of us who were in grade school together, like. Were at the funeral and then afterwards, like so. I mean, you are right in that regard. It is a little weird that he didn't try to like reach out to these resources when it was like super important to him in the first movie. And again, all I'm saying is the first movie was bad.
Yeah,
he was a boarding school,
and that this is a burden on this movie.
But also, you can make the same argument about this movie, about the left. Like he also knew his father was related to Oscorp in some way, so why didn't that?
That was a plot point though, in like the first one. And
They said that like no one is seeing.
Yeah, but
one's seen Norman Osborn in years or something because he was sick.
No, not Harry's father.
Right, but no, and like
Richard Parker,
the Richard Parker stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
That was that's why he broke into Oscorp. Like that's why he went there as
right.
And
in
that's
the
why
first movie?
and that's why he reached out to Dr. Connors. Like that's actually why all these plot points occur. Okay, so the subway station, by the way, speaking of Richard Parker, or anything with Richard Parker, like the death scene, I feel like they did that just to like dispel like anyone thinking that the guy at the end of the first movie was
Richard Parker.
Parker.
Yeah, do you know who that is?
It's who's Fierce? Do you know anyone that has last name Fierce?
So there's a character who I've been told is the one who he's supposed to be, which is a character called the Gentleman. I have no idea who he is. It's totally outside of my realm. They started throwing references in there, like VJ Novak being Smythe, like who was the creator of the Spider Slayers from the show, but most people know him from the cartoon. Like that's out there. That was cool to put him in there.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a good
It's a little too much that it's again like the whole universe is like all like,
everyone is related to Oscorp, and then by default Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Well, Oscorp is kind of like Sony's Shield. You know what I mean? Just in, I don't mean in functionality, but I mean in terms of connecting characters. It's kind of like the mutual thing that everyone can mention.
And
it's like the big mega power.
The fact that what Sony is doing for, like, as far as like the announcements that we've heard, rather than doing an Avengers-style team-up movie of heroes, it's a villain team-up movie, and having them all being connected through Oscorp putting them together does basically make it Oscorp evil Shield.
Right.
It's kind of weird when it's like, oh, here, hey, this
Did
company...
we just see that movie?
Yeah,
Isn't
Shield already evil itself?
Hail Oscorp, Hail Hydra. Let's go.
Hail Oscorp.
So we were talking about
to recap.
The look of Green Goblin.
Yeah.
All right, so they've kind of moved in this like mechanical suit kind of way. I think they wanted it to look like Iron Man, like with like moving plates and so forth.
Yeah.
Kind of the way that like Willem Dafoe probably pushed it in that direction from like. In the comics, it was like sort of an armor, but it was
mostly spandex.
It was a spandex suit, but it had like wires in it, so it could shoot lasers.
Sure, whatever.
And they went with this like armor kind of direction.
But it was a costume, and Willem Dafoe had armor.
And this is, I think, just like taking it further. Why the fuck did he have a hand exposed? It's like the goddamn RoboCop situation. I'm like, why would you ever design a battle suit where one arm is exposed? I don't get that.
I didn't even notice that.
Like the second I saw that, I'm like, it's like fucking RoboCop all over again. Like, you would... What's the point?
I was a little... maybe you can clear it up for me. And I guess why he looked like that, why he looked like a goblin monster, which is funny because, like, he was trying to avoid the disease that would make him look like an evil goblin creature.
Well, I think that's
what they're saying is, like... Okay, so...
It was because he didn't have the Parker DNA.
Right, that he was going to have this happen to him over a long, painful process that was going to kill him. Instead, he tried shooting himself up with spider venom, and it reacted to the disease.
I can't listen to that.
And made him look more Goblin-y, sort of. And then the suit healed him, I guess. So the suit is kind of like the Iron Man suit.
Yeah. Was he dying?
Yeah, he like put the suit on, and it's like healing process activated, which makes no sense.
So now he's fully healed, right? Because he was sitting in.
Well,
he was sitting in the jail. He was like, it comes and goes, but he was like,
he's not wearing the suit.
He wasn't wearing. He was.
I don't think it healed his like goblin-eyes permanently. I think it basically like healed him as long as he's wearing it, and then it'll kind of resurface as time goes on.
So why?
I think it makes no sense in the general concept.
Why did Norman just wear the suit?
That's a good question. He had.
Why did Norman Osborn just wear the suit that would have healed?
Then this movie wouldn't have happened. The same way, like if Harry Osborn hadn't been locked out by like the lawyers of his company. Being like
that was insane.
You would have gone crazy.
We committed illegal actions because you're technically the president, even though you're like a 17-year-old boy. You're fired from the company.
Well, and also they like just let him leave as opposed to like sending him to jail.
Yeah.
The whole idea of like the company fallback scenario is that you hang that person out to dry. They didn't hang him out to dry. Like he
was like, wait, I know my own way out.
And they're like, okay.
And he still he could still kind of get into Ravencroft.
He went into their maximum security facility where they have super soldiers and freed a giant Electro Man. Like
Oscorp's dropping the ball.
The whole movie had so many like good little snippets, but it is held together by like the worst old moldy
the thinnest
glue.
Moldy webbing possible.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
The web that links this together is kind of falling apart.
I will say that I thought the movie was strongest in its last half hour. I thought that the last half hour of the movie would have been great if that was like
if they had built it from the start. If they built the
Electro fight, the Goblin fight, Gwen Stacy dying, and the end.
See, the Electro fight didn't help. Like I didn't think was that great. Like I thought the fight in Times Square looked awesome.
Yeah.
The second one could have just been a cutscene.
They also showed the entire thing in the
and he was just like kind of flying. Yeah, exactly. It's all in the trailer, but like
right.
It was like he's on rails. We never really had a sense of stakes. It's not like we felt like we were with him, like just barely surviving. Like they showed it, but we weren't really with him on that. And part of it is we were also cutting away from him. There wasn't this like sense of tension.
And he survived a lot of electricity going directly to him, which I know he's like significantly more resilient than any person.
Right, but like, how more resilient are spiders to electricity than any other?
A second of that electricity would kill a person.
What happens to a spider when struck by lightning?
The same thing
that happens to everyone.
Yo, and Toad was in the follow-up.
All right, let's bring up this one. All right, I described this as Sony's basic attempt at giving the fans a hand job when really we wanted to all to get a VJ. Rather than do like a teaser at the end or like mid credits or whatever, like every other superhero movie's done recently, they did in Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, they set that precedent, and the Fox movies have been doing this like crazy. I am so confused by this one. In the middle of the credits, like complete, like not like they end like the main like animated credits and then the new credits, like, and then they have a scene in the new like the normal like just like scrolling credits. Like in the scrolling credits, all of a sudden, a trailer, not even a trailer, like a scene from X-Men shows up.
Yeah,
and I was so confused before because it's actually that hit the internet already.
Really?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
But fucking Fox owns that, and Sony owns this one. So it's like they were like, oh shit, we've got nothing. Can we like make a deal with Fox because oh crap, we need to have some kind of like fan bait, and at least it's not like Marvel and Disney's like Avengers stuff.
Right.
Like that's the only thing I can figure that they were like, oh shit, well the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that's what
they're
they
forming an alliance of epic.
Yeah, they should have just replayed the part from Amazing Spider-Man where he's yelling at Aunt May to go to bed. That was hilarious.
Sally Field proved to be a better Aunt May in this than I expected.
Well, also, the age makes much more sense. In 17-year-old boys, not going to have a 70-year-old aunt.
Right. No, that's true.
Like, where would that...
I mean, there's some, like, the idea was that, like, May and Ben were, like, much older than Richard in, like, the comics.
Fine, but
also, they would have been way richer, too, if they didn't have kids. They wouldn't have been...
Well, look, so she I didn't think did much in the first movie. She did a much better job in this one.
Yeah,
she did. She still hasn't had as much to do as Aunt May in any of the like Sam Raimi movies,
which is fine because like you not every character has to have a significance like to like give you that like you know.
Right. It's just weird. Sally Field. Like,
but even so, like I still felt like they try to shoehorn like Aunt May gives the advice that Spider-Man needs at this time into the movie, which like
I really
you know what sometimes there's just people in your life that just don't help you at all.
Speaking of, she gives him the advice to like go fight the Rhino when he shows up again. The goddamn Rhino suit is just bullshit. Like, so flight suits I can dig, extra arms I can kind of understand. This thing might as well like why not just have a tank? Why not just have a mech suit?
Why do you need a person?
Why have a like it so it can open his face? I kept on thinking like they're in a gunfight. What if he just got shot?
Or like,
where's that would have been so funny.
Where's that sniper?
In Iron Man 2, like two times he just opened up his face like to taunt Tony Stark.
Right. Oh,
I was so like, why did they just shoot him with a bullet?
But he was in an active gunfight, and he like opened up his face mask to taunt the cops, and I'm like, oh right, because the New York City police are only trying to create chaos; they're not actually trying to do anything.
Right.
Well, granted,
they only open full fire on things or people that can't be hurt by
bullets. Yeah. But anytime they have an actual shot, they decide like, no, now's not the right time.
Where was that sniper during the Rhino fight?
That's what I said. Yeah, where was that guy that decided to shoot Electro without waiting for orders? Yeah. Where was he during the Rhino?
And like, why didn't the Rhino just fucking kill the kid?
That's too
because you don't know.
He was like, no, whatever.
No,
he was like
this
Russian murderer that even when the kid went away, when Spider-Man was like talking to everyone and was like, hey man, blah blah blah.
Wait,
Rhino was like, I assume he was just chilling in the back. Yeah, he didn't say anything.
Well, also you get the idea that
it's like okay,
he wants his revenge. He's like a
villain. There were a lot of those. There were a lot of like these cute little like we're in this stressful situation. And then it was like, oh, come on, Gwen, why you gotta do this and do that? And it's like, yes, I enjoy their chemistry, and sometimes the dialogue is good and it's funny. But in the middle of the scene, it's really not realistic that either of them.
Yeah, but that's what separates Spider-Man from like every other superhero. Like,
that's what separates Spider-Man, but not Gwen.
Yeah, but Spider-Man doesn't care what Gwen wants. He's gonna be himself, regardless of the danger that he's facing. And he also part of his flaw is that he's like a kind of a cocky guy who will take a time.
That's the Andrew Garfield thing.
What I'll say about this movie is that this is not the worst superhero movie, even in the last like 3 years, but it is.
When did Iron Man 2 come
Iron Man 2 is better
Far
than
along.
this. Iron Man 2 is better than
You
this.
think?
But, yeah, I think so. But this isn't amazing. And like I said, if this was a series, I would have actually been more okay with, like, because there would have been, like, really good episodes in there.
Mm.
But because it's just one movie, all of its faults, you kind of, like, walk out with that, like, bitter taste in your mouth. Like, the CGI, like, didn't quite work for me. Like, the finale, aside from the Gwen Stacy death, which was well done, but predictable.
I really wanted to see him jump back up there and have a finished
Fuck
fight
up,
with the
Harry.
Goblin.
Yeah,
I really
that-
wanted to
that's-
see.
I think
I
we're
was
missing
waiting
that.
for him
Because
to
you
be
never
like,
get like you never get like Harry going to jail. You never get like Harry
because we don't
being
see
dealt with,
right.
or
We
the
just see him
repercussions.
kind of like go to take a
Get
fucking
sad.
nap or something.
Yeah,
He's
it's
like,
like-
look at that goblin nap.
I got hit by a
and then you
car.
just see like and then you just see like,
Like he's the southern. I didn't buy a car.
and then
No,
you
but
just
like
see-
I wanted to see Gwen just die, and I wanted to see him like come like because we never really seen Andrew Garfield or that
Lose
version
it.
lose
Yeah.
control before.
Yeah, but you know
Wanted
what?
to see
That's
him
what
really beat
yeah,
up
and
there.
I kind of wanted that too, but that would have been like an easy. That's like one thing with that, like they could have done easily, and they decided to just be like,
But
you know what?
that was
we
a
all
big,
know it's gonna.
that was a
That's
big
necessary.
problem
I mean-
with this movie was that they tried to choose all of these complicated things over things that could have been
The visceral,
easier,
like,
but
natural responses.
visceral, natural responses
Yeah.
that would have been better.
Yeah.
And if they had gone with the visceral responses that are sometimes easier, I think it would have been a better movie.
Yeah.
Mm.
In the end, I would say like this movie was as like much like dead center in the middle as I can imagine. Like Amazing Spider-Man was like slightly better than it could have been. It was better than like Origins, like Origins Wolverine. So that was sort of like a thumbs at like a 45-degree
I
downward
know,
angle.
it's
This is like a
90.
dead side. Like there
Okay.
were great scenes in it, and like I said, I really enjoyed that first half of the movie, but it just never came together for me.
Adam?
No, I want you to go next.
I thought this movie should have been retitled The More Amazing Than Amazing Spider-Man, but Still Not So Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Dude,
Adam?
I mean, just Emma, call me. I'm around. This is where I live. You can see it, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep on swinging.